Hi, and welcome to Telepathic TV. This is television that you watch with your third eye, and I'm Neville-Johnston.
And I'm Mary Phelan, and our show is about raising our consciousness. And tonight we're going to talk about criticism. And so,
The fear of criticism and why it is so debilitating. And the more we, it doesn't work to criticize anyone because their response is not, oh, I'll be better.
Well, next time someone criticizes me, I'm going to say, you're a terrible criticizer. You're terrible.
And we'll see how long it takes them to
What awful criticism you have.
See how long it takes them to catch on to it.
Yeah. Well, you know, criticism and critique, a lot of times people make that comparison. And I was thinking earlier that really the difference between criticism and critique is critique, you actually care about the other person, and criticism, you're projecting your own anger or whatever onto them.
Fear, doubt,
so one's
worry.
Constructive, one isn't.
Yeah, so criticism, or the idea of a person's particular statement versus the way other people hear it is another. But the idea of criticism does nothing but debilitate. It's absolutely crippling, and it doesn't have an effective, if you took the person and first won them over, you know, that you were a friend speaking to them to assist them, rather than hurling an epithet of, you know, how can you possibly be that way? That is how I avoided, you know, but the idea is to first strike up common ground by which you can communicate to the person. If it's just blurting out a criticism, all you're going to get is an axe thrown at you as a basic rule.
Okay, well, you're bringing up something that is interesting that I'd like to address as well. If you look at the person criticizing, it's often because they don't feel heard. And it's often that somebody could perhaps be taking their stuff personally, as in like Andy Capp and the nagging wife or whatever. One time there was an episode of Somebody Loves Raymond or Everybody Loves Raymond. I only saw it a couple times. I think that's what it's called. Anyway, it was an episode where his mother and his father were visiting, and the mother is always saying, oh, John, quit doing that, quit doing that. Looked like this typical scenario of a criticizing wife and a victim husband. And so they invited the dad to come stay with them for a week, and he didn't do anything on his own. He was like spilling things everywhere. He was just really a problem child, so to speak. And so then they all started thinking of the mother as a saint for putting up with them and doing all that on his behalf. So a lot of times criticism, depending on what side it's coming from, it's useful to see what is it that they're trying to say or that they're looking to say that other people aren't hearing. Because when you get frustrated that you're not heard and a situation doesn't get resolved, that usually steps it up to criticism. Whereas if you address it directly, it doesn't. There is just toxic criticism, like in the comments section of pretty much anything.
Everything, yeah. What is it, Yelp?
It's like a Jerry Springer show in the comment sections.
Mm-hmm. Interesting stuff. So as always, the language is right there as soon as you can see that the language explains everything, and I'll do this one really simply. There are 3 I's in criticism, which is...
a third eye?
No. The I meaning, I believe ego is misspelled. It would actually be I-go.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so the 3 I's give it away as simply ego, and that the person doing the criticizing has the diplomatic skills of a flatworm. Even a flatworm that ate a dictionary, there's just no diplomatic skill involved in criticizing people because it alienates them, pushes them away, and then they rebel, they stick to whatever it was they were being criticized for because someone came along and attempted to take it away from them. So there's this little engine that gets lit up in the criticism.
Now, in that case, what does the other person do if they wish to communicate something? Something I've observed in my life many times is that people are very sensitive to criticism, and that's why we do so much, is, like I said on prior shows, that we are so attached to that external validation. And when we get really free of it, we're going to be free of our own internal validation. But we're so afraid of being criticized that often, and being criticized so many times through our life, that someone can say, would you move that over to here? And the person will take it personally as criticism and blow up to it and things like that. So step number one with criticism in your life is to step out of the idea that that's personal, because as we've said on the show, it's always about the other person. So if you look at the other person and let's say they're criticizing your coat color or whatever, we talked about this before, where people would criticize the colors that we wear. I know, we got to stop doing that. No, we can still do it. Anyway, what was I just saying?
About criticism.
I know that.
No, the other person.
Rick's my external hard drive.
No, in order to
okay, so
actually
you're
get
criticizing
the person to
someone's
change.
coat color. Thank you. What they're doing is that person is feeling like, I really can't wear bright colors, and you doing it is making me mad at me, but I'm taking it out on you. So criticism and not taking it personally and actually seeing what that person is saying, it's a much better way to handle it than assume it's somebody, yet one more person beating you down. Because when you do, all it does is start the war, because sometimes the criticism may not even be there.
Yeah, and as we've said so many times on this program, as soon as someone has insulted you, they have revealed an unbelievably...
Or criticized you.
Same thing, exactly. Have revealed an unbelievably intimate thing about themselves, and that is what they don't like about themselves. So if I get in the moment of clarity after I've been, in this way assaulted, I reply, I don't want to hear anything else about your childhood. Thank you. And that's that.
Where
now
I say, I can help you with that.
No. You can help yourself, but yeah.
Well, what I mean is that I know techniques to really assist with that.
Oh, yeah.
So that you don't have to live like that is basically what I was saying. I wasn't taking the other person's power or anything.
No, I've seen you do absolute miracles with people.
It's simply put that there is a way, and if you look at someone that's in the mode of criticism with compassion and say they really don't feel heard, they feel powerless basically. And so if you allow them to have their power back and not give them yours, by not giving them yours, it's a good way to diffuse that situation.
Well,
because all of us criticize.
Yeah, and the real basis that goes on in this is the idea that there's one thing, Dale Carnegie, there's one thing on earth that everyone desires greatly, and that's a really big, and that's crystal, for those of you who are finishing my sentence for me. But nonetheless, everyone desires to feel important, and that's the technique by which you can enter this successfully and leave it successfully is by first figuring out a way in which you can make the person feel important, and then they will listen to you and respect you. But the flat-out stabbing of a criticism, no matter how valid the criticism is, just totally alienates. There is no possibility of getting the person to self-correct once it's been entered into the field as the criticism. It takes away, it discourages creativity, imagination, it discourages any number of things. Here, go ahead with what you were going to say.
I was just saying that I think that that's the case with the rebel type personality, but the average person takes criticism very much to heart, and it makes them feel bad about themselves. And they live in fear of it, and so they'll live a different life in order to not feel that criticism. And one thing I wanted to also bring up, that criticism comes in the form of words, but it also comes in the form of silence. And a lot of times people reflect the value back at another person by completely ignoring and not hearing what their basic requirements, needs, whatever we want to call it, are. And there are a lot of different ways to disrespect people apart from criticizing verbally. You know, your actions
Absolutely true.
and things like that.
Yeah. Well, meanwhile, the corporations are owning us based on this, because the idea of
That's true.
oh yeah, the real
Deodorant.
reason. Well, yeah, there's thousands of examples.
Yeah.
The fashion world is
Yeah.
nothing but criticism. I mean, and no matter what you wear. So I've always had a very good time wearing exactly. There's one rule about the way I dress, period. In spite of what anyone wants to say or do, because I'm not really interested. I have to be comfortable in the outfit. That is the only thing there is with me, nothing else. And if somebody else's opinion of me is going to be affected by that, I know a lot about that person. First of all, they don't have an opinion. They have some sort of a fashion plate in mind, and if I don't line up with it, they think there's something the matter with me, which is really laugh out loud hilarious, because I didn't come here to please anybody. I really didn't. I came here to please me, and I've been good at it so far, and will continue to be. But this idea of living in this boiling pot of criticism that is our incarnation at the point, and God, if you started listing symptoms, okay, you'll find someone gets sick as a direct result, and this is because of not educating our children on the subject of criticism. If I say headache, skin peeling, whatever that might be, aches and pains, okay. So now anybody that heard me that doesn't have their own mast up, doesn't have their own ore in the rudder in the water, is suddenly going to be running to a doctor to be told, well, stop that, don't do that. This is you, it's your life. You have an immune system. You don't have to become ill simply because you have an advertisement on television. You don't have to become ill because of that. But we don't know that, and that's because we are so triggered by criticism. Stop that. Stop it. The criticism, you go to sleep immediately when you're criticized. And you don't have to do that. You can actually wake up. I have for years, countless years, well, all right, so 20 years been saying that if you will attach flags to certain concepts and the flag goes up and it wakes you up instead of puts you to sleep, words in our language, the word should wakes me up. What I know is someone's out to guilt manipulate me. Oh God, that's intriguing. Gee, I'll have to see what I should do. No, none of that. It's the same thing with criticism. As soon as you're criticized, you're sound asleep, and you can be manipulated. And to put an end to that, you have to step back from the criticism to realize they're talking about themselves.
Well, also, I feel, and you guys all know this about me, but I really do feel that our life experiences, beliefs, and early childhood environment and the interactions that we had give us a yardstick, a definition of how life should be, what things should be. And when people are criticizing another person, they have a very fixed idea of how this has to look, and the other person isn't living up to that. And really, it's a great opportunity for people to talk about the two-way street, what that other person is doing that's not aligning with this, and this person saying, maybe my view is a little too rigid and fixed. But what we tend to do at just the criticism, it ignites old childhood programs of being yelled at, of being told that we're not significant, that there's not a value to us. And so criticism, everybody does it. Some people do it very verbally, like, you're a terrible criticizer and stuff like that.
That's good.
Other people do it by saying, if you don't live up to what I expect you to live up to, I'm going to ignore you. And every time you speak, I'm going to turn my head and ignore who you are as a human being, which is probably more cruel and goes into the deep heart of the soul, even worse than the words do. But Robert Fulghum, in his book, Everything I Learned in Kindergarten, and one of his books, they came out in the 80s with little insightful essays in them. One of them was that said in it that sticks and stones can break your bones, but words can break your heart. And it told the story of a native culture that would carve out, they were known for boat carving. They'd take these huge trees and they'd hollow them out and make these lovely, lovely hand done canoes. And how they got the tree to fall is they would go scream at that tree for 30 days, once a day, every day, and the tree would fall down. And so that's what his conclusion was, is that words can break your heart. And I really feel silence can break your heart too. I remember a lady called one time where the father would not allow the children to speak at all. He got home at 5 o'clock and the kids were not allowed to speak. And when we are ignored, I think that sets up such a primal fear and lowness of things.
Yeah.
So our actions also criticize. If we roll our eyes when people do something, if we look away, if we make a gesture, or if we get up and walk away when it's clear that someone is in a vulnerable place, all those things really are doing the same thing. So I think all of us could learn to be less criticizing of others by seeing what it is, what's compelling us to do that. And for people criticizing us, not to take it so personally and storm off, but use it as an opportunity to dialogue. It'd be great.
Oh, we have our first caller, and I want to thank you, caller. What's your name, please?
Hi, I'm Fred here. I live in Burke, Virginia.
Hey, Fred.
All right,
Thanks for
Fred.
calling.
Yeah.
Oh, I think y'all are great.
Thank you.
And
Thank you.
I just
You
wanted to say I had a little experience today with my job hunting,
Mm-hmm.
and it was unsuccessful.
Oh.
There was a miscommunication about the job that I was applying for, and there was some blaming involved, and I wanted to tell you about it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So how did that feel at the end of it, or how did it go? Like what? How did that affect you personally? You mean the job was advertised as one thing, and then it was another when you got there?
Exactly. Yeah. So it felt kind of bad.
Yeah. Well, I'm sorry to hear that.
But you know, I don't have a lot of intense suffering. So.
Yeah.
But
Well,
I think anyway.
Yeah. Well, as I think Neville or wherever we got it from, the universal edit, that
Yeah.
meant that the universe was editing that out because that wasn't the optimum situation
Yeah,
for you.
100% of everything that happens is on your side. Everything that happens is on your side. So this was a good thing that happened. Now, you had said the word blame, and blame is a form of criticism, actually, to understand it through this particular lens that we're talking about. When one blames, one has totally failed to recognize their participation in their reality. You follow what I mean?
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah. Okay, so as soon as there's blame, and I really feel that there's a frequency through which that could be comedy, the blame. Yeah, there you go. See, you're there already. And it's hilarious, some of the blames. I mean, geez, nobody paid any attention to anything throughout history as far as I can tell. Now, the next point we'll be introducing is we are raised in such a right-wrong environment that we don't want to do anything wrong, and so we're always running around like rats in a can, although there's not much room to run in a can. All right, fine, so rats in a maze, keeping ourselves free from criticism and blame and all of this stuff, when the reality is that none of that's really that interesting. It's
Yeah. But your reaction is totally interesting, and I really appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
Fred, thank you for calling in.
Thank you.
Audience in general, we totally love that you're there, and we love that you call in, and we are completely here for you. And anyone may call in, just that we would then get the opportunity to help maybe thousands of people, because if you call in with a particular thing, I guarantee you there was another X thousand people out there that had the same question, differently phrased.
Right.
But
Well,
yeah,
I
go
think that one of the games, yes, I definitely agree with that. One of the games to play is to challenge yourself this coming week to look at criticism differently, because we are so conditioned that from our religious subconscious mind that we're born nothing and we have to prove ourselves to some authority figure to be qualified to live forever. Otherwise, off into the lake of fire for you. And so we have this thing that if we're not approved of, we're going to die. I mean, it's literally a life and death primal thing.
Fear of
so
death.
what I would like to propose here is that everybody gets criticized at some point during the week, or there's the potential to be criticized, and we certainly criticize others all the time, which is really a big reflection of something going on within us. Watch criticism this week in your life, and when someone criticizes you, do what you can to not take that too personally. Find in it what's for you, what are you reflecting back to you, and then look and hear what they're really saying. Look past the criticism and see the woundedness, the pain. There's a connector point there. If you don't freeze up and act like that's going to kill you, then you don't get afraid of criticism. It becomes your friend, and guess what happens beyond that? Then you start living and doing things that you really would love to do, but you've been afraid to do because you've been afraid of criticism or that negative feedback. Once you make peace with this, it's just like fear. It no longer has a hold on you, and you're bigger than it.
Yeah, very well done. This is important. And the idea of the criticism serving to wake you up, that is, rather than put you to sleep, because the noise in your head from the criticism just shuts
really,
down all the higher functions.
That's the whole point, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it does.
All right.
No, go ahead. I was just excited because you were saying that.
Yeah, it's an important thing. It's amazing how easily harmonized to the idea that we're out of harmony, that we are. See, that's the joke. Everybody heard the joke, right?
Repeat it.
Fine, okay.
Put your joke ears on, everybody.
Okay. We are so easily harmonized to the idea that we are out of harmony.
That's true.
That it's funny.
Yes.
Okay, now we can just as easily be harmonized to the idea that we are in harmony, but not with these jokers and their sour notes pounding on the little drum of criticism. And as we said, please be aware of whatever the critic is, whatever the criticism is, it's about the person speaking it, not about you.
Exactly.
If the couple that you were talking about earlier, if the wife said, all right, so leave this spilled milk or whatever it is, fine, you'll clean it up eventually, and I'm leaving for 2 weeks, that'll be long enough for you to recognize not to do that. And then either he would come around or he wouldn't, that's the thing. Just nothing about, just the criticism is a code. And if you can break the code, then criticism is actually part of the divine comedy that we can live in around here. Eckhart Tolle is one of the more brilliant Arcturians incarnate on the planet. And he'll have a speaking gig where he's in front of, 5,000 people. And he'll come out on the stage and not say a word. And he'll sit down and not say a word. And 3 or 4 or 5 minutes go by and he doesn't say a word. And all of a sudden he starts to laugh in this kind of little, you'd recognize it as Arcturian laugh. And it's because he's feeling the audience and feeling their expectation, but he's not subject to it. And then he'll go ahead and speak all this brilliance, but it's remarkable to see.
Well, one thing I thought this would be a good opportunity to comment on the spilt milk thing. And because that could be a good description of how people criticize other people through action, which is really a passive-aggressive thing. Okay, so let's say that it's spilt milk, or I knew somebody once who really felt they had a real hard time with mosquitoes or something, and asked her husband to latch the front door. It had like a little hook to keep the mosquitoes out because it was really a bothersome thing. She got like really big welts and everything. And she would ask him, and he would always forget, or said he would forget and everything. And it got really bad to the point where her quality of life was suffering. But the person, through not latching the door, was criticizing her request to have the door latched by refusing to latch it with the actions, and then be in denial and not saying, I don't want to, and I think you're ridiculous for for being upset about a few mosquitoes, that he didn't deal with it directly. Do you see what I mean? And what I'm looking to do is to call attention to all levels of criticism, and it's not just the ones in the words. We get this energy all the time. So you can criticize someone's point of view by refusing to respect it as well. Yeah, a lot of people don't see that.
No, very well put. Yeah, that is the way that works. Hi, caller. What's your name, please?
This is Gail.
Gail, what can we do for you?
Hi, Gail.
Hi. Well, I've been listening to the show, and I was wondering if you would talk a little bit about when you're working for someone, and they tell you, like, color something blue, and you color it green, and they come back and they say, you colored this green and it's supposed to be blue. Is that considered criticism, or
No.
how do you deal with that?
No, I think everybody probably has their own view of this, but the way I see it is critique is the way I wrote it. Critique cares, criticism condemns. So if you're just looking to crush the person and not offer a solution, it's really for no purpose. I think criticism is somebody looking to communicate and not really getting a two-way thing, and they get frustrated, honestly, and that becomes their only power at that point. And so I think if you are critiquing as a manager, let's say, or even a coworker in certain circumstances, that is then the job. So I don't see that as criticism at all. Criticism is when somebody is projecting old program, old pain, or anger at themselves onto someone else. It's just kind of the way I see it.
Yeah,
what
very
about
well
you,
put.
Neville?
I'm okay with green.
Okay, all right. Thanks. That's a very good answer. Thank you.
Thank
Okay.
you very much. The other person was whoever was doing the critiquing, and I believe more so in this situation. All of we humans, again, Dale Carnegie, the one thing everybody, doesn't matter who you are, the one thing everyone desires is to feel important. So more or less in the situation where the person's hurling criticism at you, if you can aikido it into them feeling important, by saying, well, I understand this must have been horrible for you, this, and so you get to open the doorway into that person. You can reverse the entire situation, and not only would they correct whatever aberrant behaviorism that has ruled the situation, they would be grateful to you for it. So, just interesting
that's
thoughts.
exactly my philosophy.
Excellent.
Where you use it as an opportunity instead of stomping off in anger or hurt, or to criticize back, or to start lobbing arguments and tempers at people, because that's usually what happens to people. If you, and I keep citing these comment sections, it's not like I spend my whole day looking at them, even though I bring that up a lot in this, but I notice that one person says that, and Facebook too. You can put up something on Facebook like, isn't this a beautiful fairy picture or something, and everybody, well, it would be fairy except the government's trying to kill you, and then this, and then it turns into this horrid thing that you just delete the whole picture because you've started World War II over it. That is a place where people criticize because they don't feel heard. They feel insignificant.
Yeah.
And they don't feel heard.
Yeah, and they don't
so
feel
what
important.
what is the solution is you listen and you work it through, which is my way of seeing it. Anyway.
Yeah, but that opens the doorway to a higher end of negotiation. Let me see, criticism. Yeah, criticism is debilitating. It really is.
Or it's an opportunity, really.
Yeah,
that.
but I mean, to the uneducated mind, it is a debilitating thing. And prior to the criticism, there could be the idea of just seeing things through a different lens, which we've been working at.
That would be the goal.
Seeing things through a different lens. Do we have this queued up? Oh, there we go. So this is latest painting. I'm doing this series of things on wheels because, I don't know, they're just so cool. How about that? All right, so there's this couple who are dragging this thing uphill. Now the thing about it is it's so light that it's not even actually touching the ground. And if you look in it, it's completely hollow, so it cannot possibly weigh that much. A couple of pieces of evidence that it doesn't weigh that much. And it is the symbol of peace. So this is
That's beautiful.
called the peace flag. And all this great effort is being put into peace when absolutely no effort whatsoever is required. If you want work, that's war. If you want peace, that's doing nothing. And how we as humanity don't get this. If no one would go to war, there wouldn't be any more wars. If the pilots absolutely refused to lay down chemtrails because, come on, I'm not going to do that to my fellow man, how could I do that? So bust me out of the Air Force. I'll move to the Caribbean and fly a little single-engine plane between islands and make a fortune, wear aviator sunglasses in spite of you. So there. You know, just, no, nobody owns you. This is the thing. But we're all caught in this unbelievable web of fear. And as much fun as that is, now I've been in visions wherever this is I go. Anyhow, there's the idea of a photonic light field that's being generated, and there is the concept of the actual awakening of humanity, where some morning people just wake up. Not everyone, just a percent of us, a small percent of us, wake up very conscious, aware of all these games and no desire to play them. And then those people begin to spread this information. This was us 20 years ago when we first started doing this particular show. Was the idea is to get people to be more conscious, that we don't have to play these games, we don't have to do this. And so for the entire last decade, I believe 15 years, 16 years, every once in a while, what if you woke up tomorrow and there was no such thing as money? What would you do? What would you love to do with your life? And we had no callers on that subject, again and again and again. The first broadcast this year, 2015, 2 people called in and said, why, what I would do if there was no money, what I would do is just sit and study. And to me that indicates we hit the mile mark in the aspiration of consciousness that this program is dedicated to. And so if a percent of us just go, okay, that will spread. And we're so far back in time that, well, 15 years ago, but in the last 15 years, the place is overrun with people at least talking about how it is that you can become more conscious. And that makes me very happy because there's 7 billion of us, and it's going to take more than our program to wake up 7 billion people unless we talk much louder. And I think that's the technique. No, it's not, but you know, this concept. So as we've said so many times, share this program with people.
Yeah, please do. By the way, I just would like to comment about the painting. I think that's one of the deepest, more thoughtful paintings that you've ever done, and I really love that concept because it is true. Happiness is easy. It's being uncomfortable that's hard work. It's being healthy is easy. It's a lot of effort to get unhealthy and things like that. So I really do like that. And it lets you know that our natural state of being is at peace and our body's natural state is healthy, and that it's not that we're unhealthy and we have to be hooked into a pharmaceutical till the end of time in order just to be normal, you know. It's just not the case. Anyway, that was very beautiful, so thank you for that, and thank you for sending that broadcast out into the universe, that message and all that, because I think that's wonderful. And, so I think on our topic tonight, one of the things that perhaps would serve very well, since this is at the core of everything, is to address the topic of self-criticism, because that's really where it is. If we criticize ourselves all the time, when someone else does, we're probably going to fly off the handle, and it's like one last straw in the back. I remember as a kid, even a kid, I think I was like 4 or 5 years old, because it was before I went to first grade. There was no kindergarten then, so I started at 5 because I was born in September. So I was 5 years old, and I remember looking at my legs thinking, oh, this isn't good enough. Look at everybody else. I mean, not from like a female perspective. I was just noticing that I wasn't as good as other people. And if I added up in my, like on a calculator, there's not even a calculator that could add up enough times or energy units that's detracted from a person's life. And I'm not alone. Everybody does it, whether you're aware of it or not. You've got an inner criticizer, not a critiquer, but a criticizer, constantly berating you about something. And we get happier when we become aware of it, and when we make peace with it and we let it go and identify what that voice is, you know, what was the lesson or whatever. And I tell you, if you don't criticize yourself a lot, you're probably not going to criticize other people a lot. So next time someone criticizes you, just say, you know, you're really wonderful. It's okay.
That'll mess them up good. All right.
Just give them a big old
Interesting.
kiss. Yeah.
This unbridled criticism that's going through our planet like some sort of a wave results in people having inferiority complexes that are not inferior.
Or that they result in the coming out as a superiority complex, which is really an inferiority complex gone
It's
awry.
funny, complex is a language
external.
code that means you don't understand it, which I think is interesting. Einstein said that if you can't explain it simply, you don't understand it. Therefore, the word complex means that you don't understand it. So inferiority complex means you don't understand that you're not inferior. It's a funny code, complex.
Yeah.
It keeps unmasking things in my thinking as a direct result.
Yeah, that's good.
So anyhow, enough criticism and the person will just quit. They will just become smaller.
Like that
smaller.
tree, they'll just fall down.
Yeah.
They just shrink.
And, so we have to, you know, like in raising children, is to not lead with the criticism, but to get the child to invest in themselves to become better people.
How about, and this is not to detract from what you're saying, but how about if we knock the socks off the idea that you're insignificant at all, and then words will just become critiques. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah.
The only way a criticism can really harm you is if you're doing that inside your own head. If somebody came and called me and said, and started criticizing me because my car is silver as opposed to green or something like that.
You heathen.
It's like, so? Okay, I think that person's a little odd, you know, and maybe I'd see if there's something I could do to assist them to kind of move on. But I wouldn't get upset about it. If you're getting upset over a criticism, it's because you've been beating yourself up over the same thing for years, probably. So what you do is say, thank you. You upset me with that criticism. That means I've been saying that to myself. So thank you so much for bringing that to my attention. And then go have a talk with yourself. Because once you love yourself unconditionally, no one can really hurt you in that way. So perhaps we teach our kids that you're going to have people that have differing points of view and different expectations of an event. And they're going to compare what you're doing to that. And sometimes you will lose in that comparison. And don't take it personally. If we teach them not to let that erode themselves and get converted into an internalized voice, that's the greatest thing. That's the greatest thing. Because I think just pretending like everything is okay, if they're coloring it green and there's a purpose for it being blue and you're paying that person to color it blue, you don't have to like say, oh, okay, well that's beautiful. That's a beautiful picture you colored on my brand new painted wall. You don't have to do that either, you know. But it would be nice if we didn't break so easily. Not that we're really breaking.
We live a life of constant shattering, the way this whole thing is set up.
But if we are designed to be shatterproofed from the get-go in our
Yes, I
environment,
agree.
then, but compassionate, and I'm not saying to close it off, but just to say, if someone says, could you move that over there, that you're not telling that you're terrible and that you don't deserve to live.
Yes, well, this is the thing. So people call in if there's something you'd like to ask specifically about situations or anything at all, really. As always on this program, please to call in.
Oh, while we have
Yes.
just a moment, I would like to announce that we have 5 more places left in our Serpent Mound adventure. And if you've been thinking about doing that, really now is the time. It's so much fun. We spend several days together. It's very relaxed and casual, but we do a lot of learning, teaching, sharing with a great group of people. We all go out and walk around and visit the murals in Portsmouth and go to dinner, and it's like so profound.
It's really fun.
And you know, we don't know how many more years we're going to be doing this, so you may wish to do it now. It really feels important, and I know that the energy of the mound calls the right people. So if you feel like, yeah, this is the right thing, the dates and all that are on the website, but it's in May, and gives you the specifics.
15th.
And we're offering a lot of different things. We're going to be going, Neville's going to lead people to their higher self. I'm going to
that's
give
fun.
a crystal gridding class, and this is all included on there, that you can participate or not at your own choice. We have a bunch of ceremonies. We'll play the remote view game. It's going to be a great, some healing exercises, and several other things too.
Yeah.
And it's just a lot of fun.
It is, yeah.
And
And also there's always people having revelations in this, and the idea of the sharing that comes from this. And some people, it'll be 2 weeks later and they go, oh, you know what happened to me? Because it wasn't yet at the place where it was spoken. You know, we've all had that experience where, oh, I get it 2 weeks later. And what I got was, you know, that sort of thing. So
You know
it
those
is
times-
a ridiculous amount of fun
Well,
also.
you know what, those times, this has happened to me, where it's like, yeah, that sounds like a good idea to do something, but then it's like, oh no, that's way out of my comfort zone. I have to drive somewhere, I have to go, which by the way, we can arrange, everybody can carpool. But then you actually get either guilted into going anyway, or you force yourself and you go, oh my God, I am so glad I went. So if you're having that wall, this may be the time to blast through it. Okay, so
So the criticism is illustrated perfectly by Marvin the robot in Hitchhiker's Guide.
this will only end in tears.
Yeah, that is absolutely a person that has been criticized throughout. Now it's interesting that he was obsessively, compulsively depressed as a robot, which you would think would be one wire if he could just find the one wire. But just that's what happens in this environment of criticism. We all walk around like Marvin the robot, and we don't have to, because everything that happens is on your side. Everything that happens in your life is your idea. People just will not look at that because they have been distracted by words like victim and blame and the other 100,000 words in our
Oh,
vocabulary.
blame, you might as well put a leash around your neck and give it to somebody else if you're going to blame someone, because, and you know, even in a lot of different areas, I won't get into that because it's not really in our topic, and I know the duck's coming up, but blame is just a big old, you know, being in victim mindset is basically what I'm talking about. You're putting a leash around your neck and saying, here, you're victimizer, take the leash.
And in the last second before the duck arrives, there is no such thing as a victim. It's not a real word. No one ever had anything happen to them or did anything that wasn't their idea. But with the word victim, we don't have to be 1/64th as conscious as we could be. Because with victim and blame, you take no responsibility for your participation in your life whatsoever. And I'm blaming you for it, you victim. See, snap out of that.
Quit blaming the
Awake.
victim.
Yeah.
I don't know, I just was
No, that's
saying words. So.
Yeah, no, I understand.
And there is our lovely Suzanne. Oh, where's that duck? Give me that
Who's
duck.
dangling. There we go.
Okay. Yeah, what's your job title? I'm a dangler.
I'm a dangler.
Okay, I got, you are a very gifted intuitive. It is time to open up to this.
All right. A new burst of creative energies is on its way. Don't judge it, let it flow through you.
Thank you. Do, do,
I love the way the duck goes up to the music.
do. Good dangling.
Yes.
You're
that's
hired.
a real duck up.
We'll give you the same salary we all make.
Yeah,
We
that's-
always joke
point that
because
out.
our whole crew, including us, including everybody that makes the show happen, Donnie, David, Michael, Pat, Rick, which Rick is in here working all the cameras by himself. Really a stellar group of people that volunteer their time every week. Neville and I do this as a volunteer, our show topics, everything that we offer here. And so we're always joking, we're going to give the crew a raise to 4 zeros instead of 2.
And speaking of which, if you happen to be in the position and
Engineers,
you're
too.
aware
They
of
move it.
FPA, Fairfax Public Access, and you'd like to come down to see the show, you're perfectly welcome. There's no charge. Just come in. Let us know you're coming, email, just so we know you're coming. That's
And
all
to
there
make
is
sure
to
we
it.
have a show. That
And yeah, and also if you are in the position or you would like to go through a very brief amount of training here, you can volunteer for our show, work on it. It's nothing but fun. Well, it really isn't. And it's a live show, so there's no editing. So technically speaking, you cannot possibly make an error. You can, it's already out
No,
on the air.
technically speaking, you can't fix any errors.
Yes, so there's no such
So
thing
you
as
don't
an
have
error.
to worry.
Yeah, there's no such thing as anything wrong. So please come
Although,
join us in
what's
whatever
inter-
capacity you would like.
Right, I agree. Yeah, I was approached one time from a company, television network from London that wanted us to send them a bunch of our bloopers for a blooper show,
Oh, yeah.
which I would have, but it's a whole lot of editing. But basically, we've had very few. If you think of, you and I have done like 1,200 hour-long episodes of live
Easily,
TV,
yeah.
which is really, at one time someone said that we had more metaphysical programming than anything else in the country.
More than Seinfeld.
Yeah, well, metaphysical programming, but certainly more than Seinfeld and,
Yeah.
and all that. Maybe not news programs that air every day or whatever.
Constantly, twice a day.
But anyway, I was bringing that up, but now I'm just
Well, there was the time the
distracted.
column fell behind us when we were talking.
Yes.
And there was the time we had a metaphysical band in here singing, and they brought candles, and the candles set off the smoke alarm.
that was
And now
somebody
you're
did
not
the
allowed to have
duck, and the
candles in
duck
here.
knocked a candle over, and the wax spilled, and it caught on fire, and so I was trying to run under the cameras. And then I got hit in the head with the duck numerous times.
Yes, it was a, what is the word?
And there was this lady, a quack
good.
attack.
Yes.
Well, there was this lady who is fairly prominent in the metaphysical community, and
Oh, that was
she
funny.
just used the F word like it was perfectly okay, and we're saying, hey, we can't do that.
Some people require a connection through
But
the
she
language
normally
before
didn't
they'll
talk
listen
like
to
that,
you.
so I don't know, maybe she had
And,
Tourette's that
oh, the
night.
lamp that fell, but the safety cable kept it.
Well, when
from-
I was interviewing Carolyn Mace, she was just talking about demons as one of the cords in the grid up here that holds all the lighting started unfurling in the shadow, looked like a serpent doing, and she screamed. Rick was here that day. Rick's been with us a long time, just like Donnie and David.
Mhm.
They've seen a lot. Yes.
So now
If anybody out there is an editor and would love to have a project, we could go through, many of our episodes are lost and gone because the tapes are gone, but to do a clip show of some moments
some of the
would
moments,
be fun.
yeah, you could make a very serious show, just clipping
Many
together
shows
little,
that way.
yeah, just clipping together the. We take 45 minutes to get to the point, and the point.
We've done
a
so many
sentence or
topics.
two. Yeah, yeah. So that this show is on the fear of criticism, because it makes you fearful. It's a very, more or less a tornado that takes place in your brain that keeps
Criticism
you from
becomes
otherwise
a fight.
thinking.
A fight for your life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what
Okay.
else? There was some other point. We're going to be at Ruby Tuesdays after the show. Tonight it's a lovely night, except for the snow and the wind and the rain and the random cats. And
Be a mailman, be a mailman.
Yeah.
Come on out.
Come join us at Ruby Tuesdays. And what else? Oh, the Serpent Mound we talked about.
Well, shall I pull a card on your peace painting,
Sure.
which we have
That
done
would
in
be
the
lovely.
past?
Yeah.
I would usually wait for you to ask, but
No,
since
that's a
we're not
really good
having any
idea.
callers for readings,
I don't
I
think
thought,
people know that.
playfulness. Look, what's interesting is
Huh.
the guy pulling the picture is in the exact opposite pose, like hunkered down, and she's back like that, opening the heart. So perhaps it's saying, open your heart, and peace will be there, and it won't be any work.
Yeah.
So that's the card of playfulness.
Oh, that is playful. Look at it. Yeah, by the way, people, you can call in right now, and Mary would be very happy to do a reading for you. Or if you still have a question left over from tonight's topic,
Yes, that's fine.
criticism. And,
Okay. A
okay.
reading for, okay, we have an audience tonight, so I'm going to do
An
a reading
audience.
for our duck dangler, and let's see what we get. Okay, so the first card, the laziness card. First of all, I feel there's no such word as lazy. It's better to ask ourselves, why don't I want to do that, and why am I making me do that? Like, for instance, I'm lazy, I'm not washing the dishes, beat yourself up. Doesn't get you anywhere. If you say, why don't I want to wash the dishes? Because it's women's work. Why am I making me? Because I must be just a woman, quote unquote. You see what I mean? Now, that gets you some traction in your life. The next card is creativity, and I really do feel that's also saying this is a time of awakening, especially as spring comes, for you to awaken something that you used to like to do. Have you ever done jewelry, like beading or anything like that? What was that? Drawing, okay. Maybe something like that, but keep in mind that beading thing, because it may come up at some point. All right, and then finally, sometimes your mind, especially with drawing or anything artistic, is what we tend to do is question ourselves, and it's not about the end result, it's about the journey of that. Anyway, look at what's holding you back from really getting into some creativity. Sometimes it might just be what we tell ourselves. Oh, I can't do that anymore, or I don't want to do that. Pick it up and engage in a different level. It feels like a real exciting, open, interesting time. A lot of interesting conversations.
Oh, excellent. And we have some extra waveform generators on the set this evening.
Oh yes, would you like
And
to?
also your decks of cards as
Oh,
well.
I've only got a couple up there, but
Yeah, that's a long enough shot. They're just in various minerals. They're all between the books on the back shelf there. And
well, the first one is a clear quartz. The second is orange calcite. The third is amethyst, and the fourth is rose quartz, and they're really lovely. We could tell you so many stories about those, and basically how they work is they're based on the Tesla technology. But what we tend to do is we think of an idea like, I'd like that new job or whatever, and it has to be run through our doubt out into the universe, and so it gets coated with doubt, and it goes out in the universe filled with doubt, and guess what? Well, I call these doubt bypassers. So you can program it with something, it doesn't hold your belief, and it'll emanate that vibration for you out into the field. And it just so happens that they are great aids in manifestation, because everything is vibrational, and it really does help. And they're beautiful, and they're works of art. And Neville is an esteemed artist, has had his sculpture in the Smithsonian.
yeah, all over the place. And I'm still I'm at Workhouse Art Center in Lorton lately, and Reston. Lots of arts in different places.
This is the first night in 16 years that we didn't have a call for a reading. We did have an audience reading.
For reading, yeah. You have about 2 minutes if you want to
No, I don't
really-
think there's time.
No more time? Okay, all right. But this idea of each of us taking it, just not taking it, but the idea of allowing ourselves to become more conscious, the idea of not being upset, the idea of
Not being set up either.
yeah, just starting to vibrate at a higher rate, simply because we can no longer vibrate at the lower rate. The lower rate is making us ill, the lower rate is making us frantic. Enough about the lower rate.
Oh.
What the higher rate does is make everything beautiful.
Okay, well, we're down to our last 2 minutes. I would just like to remind people, too, that you can even write down our call-in number, which is 571-749-1166, and it appears at the bottom all the time, but sometimes people aren't visually seeing it. And so even if you're not watching it live, you can call in to the show at that number, you know, on Thursday
that's true,
nights,
yeah.
8:30 to 9:30 Eastern Time. With that said, anyway, if you would like to get in touch with me about the Serpent Mound or anything, there are going to be some classes and such coming up. I have kind of stepped back from teaching for a while, but I'll probably open back up to that.
Yeah, yeah.
And
Teaching.
so what were you going to say?
It's been so long. No, just
Thanks.
no.
I was not even a minute.